I personally don't feel we should certainly not encourage kids to use pot, but we need to start having honesty in drug education. Yeah. Right now in this DARE program, they show the kids a chart that has the marijuana right next to the heroin and the cocaine, and they tell them it's all the same, it's all drugs, it's all bad. So what's the flip side of that argument? The other side of that argument is that cocaine and heroin must be as safe as marijuana. And I've met young people who are heroin addicted who started off with pot, and they said, hey, this isn't so bad. And once they realized they'd been lied to about marijuana, they tried other hard drugs, which was obviously a mistake.
Right.
But we need to teach them that marijuana is marijuana. It's not heroin. It's not cocaine. It's never killed anybody. Let's stick to the truth.
It's not that marijuana is a gateway drug. It's that the prohibition is putting people in a position where they have to buy marijuana from the same people as they're getting the crack and the heroin
exactly.
from.
And I think also it's important to stress that there are a couple of ways that you can seriously hurt yourself with cannabis, but it's misuse. It's not regular use. That is chemically fertilized cannabis, just like chemically fertilized anything. It's filled with radioactive isotopes. It's toxic. It's bad for you. It has to all be organic in order to address people's concerns with regards to lung cancer. Yeah. The other thing is driving while impaired. Everyone's scared of that. That's the other big bugaboo they bring out when they say why we have to keep pot legal. But all you need for that is good impairment testing. Fire all the cops currently going after growers and users of drugs. And if anyone's swerving, just have them ready to drive up and not take a blood sample or urine sample or anything like that, but just test them for impairment. Can you walk a straight line? Can you answer these questions? Can you focus, right? And for whatever reason they're impaired, get them off the road.
They could be impaired because they're tired or because they're on too much caffeine. You know? Whatever reasons they're impaired, they should be asked to leave.
But those are the two main risks of cannabis, and they're both addressed.
But the difference between marijuana and alcohol is that you can gauge yourself somewhat by how many drinks you have. You know that if you have one drink, that's not as bad as 5 drinks. Whereas with marijuana, there's different strains of marijuana. Yeah. One pinner joint can get you completely wasted, whereas 3 big joints of another strain of marijuana won't get you high at all.
Well, the thing to remember is alcohol is our hardest drug, cannabis is the softest drug. In terms of impairment, if you're a novice user, or if you're using a strain unfamiliar to you, or if you use too much, yeah, it can impair. But chronic users like myself who smoke every day, even if we run across some really good stuff, we can be high without being impaired. We can be focused, happy, hungry, relaxed, focused without being impaired because we're familiar with our dose, we're familiar with the cannabis. And I think...
Well, that's because you smoke on a regular basis.
On a regular basis, and a lot of cannabis users do. There's at least 1.5, maybe 3 million who smoke on a regular basis, just like me.
How do you regulate the teenager that goes out on...
I was a teenage cannabis user, right? I didn't need any regulation because I wasn't hurting myself or anybody else. Yeah. I wouldn't smoke in the morning classes because I recommend that you do not smoke cannabis for high pressure, low pleasure activity. Things you don't want to do, get them over with quick. Just do them straight. But the things I enjoyed doing, like drama and phys ed, I waited for the afternoon classes. I smoked before those things, and I was totally into it. I had lots of energy. I was wide awake, I was focused, and I enjoyed it. And I think that most kids are just like that. They'll know when to use it, when not to use it, how to avoid using too much. But if it's all forbidden, there's a black market around it. They'll buy a whole bunch at a time. They'll use too much of it. They'll be burnt out, low energy buzz. They smoke too much at a time, and it drains you. So I think we need good role models to teach them how to use it properly.
Too. I think this whole thing about kids and pot, it's such a red herring because kids get in trouble with alcohol. How do they regulate? Let's be honest, we all were kids and we had our bad experiences with alcohol, but that's no reason to send the SWAT team into the house of every law-abiding citizen who has a liquor cabinet or is making beer in the basement. Let's look at specific things, but don't penalize everybody because of the
kids get drunk. We shouldn't go back to Al Capone.
Like Willie Nelson has been saying, we shouldn't be punishing adults for using marijuana responsibly. And it's like, peanuts make some people allergic and are dangerous and can cause death in some people.
10 raw potatoes.
But we don't outlaw peanuts. marijuana, here's something that doesn't kill anyone, and we're keeping it illegal.
Yeah, do we want to talk impairment? You drink 10 cups of coffee, I'll smoke 10 joints, and then we'll have an impairment test. And
Right.
I bet you I'll be less impaired than you are.
I can tell you, I work for the hospital, so I work in the emergency room on a night shift, and almost everything that comes in, especially Friday night, Saturday night, it's all alcohol related. There's nothing marijuana related coming into the emergency room.
No.
Nobody's ever overdosed on it. I see alcohol overdoses. People get these drinking parties and binge drinking, and it can lead to coma, it can lead to death.
Drunk driving,
Exactly.
Bad
All the accidents,
wives.
people smell like alcohol. They don't smell like pot.
toxic, and you can die from alcohol withdrawal. You can't with heroin, you can
Right.
with alcohol. Marijuana withdrawal is just you miss it. You feel a little burnt out, a little low energy. That's all.
Deprivation.
There's
Yeah,
no headache.
marijuana withdrawal, you go out and get a job, right?
With
Right,
caffeine,
right.
with caffeine withdrawal, you get a headache. With cannabis withdrawal, you miss it. That's all.
Yeah.
Nicotine, I mean, I don't have to tell you how addictive that is, and compared to nicotine, marijuana isn't addictive at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what we're talking about here is choices, options, and tolerance. And it's not a question of do you smoke marijuana or is it good or bad, but rather are we going to have diversity in our community? I think that another area where we talk about that is when we talk about school vouchers. Being able to send your kid to a Christian school or a school that's not going to be teaching them the DARE program and where they're not going to be learning lies. Maybe you want to send your kid to a French school. I think that there's a lot of diversity in Vancouver. I know in Vancouver, Kensington, where I'm from, there's a lot of different ethnic groups, and they'd like to be able to send their kids to schools where their values could be taught. And I mean, of course, these schools would have to be regulated. But
You have to be accountability.
It'd have to be.
But we support parents and just people in general having more control, more community control over all their institutions. Health. If there was vouchers for healthcare, the Compassion Club would be having tons of resources at their disposal, and doctors and the pills, knives, and needles might see a drain away from the harsh stuff,
Yeah.
the last resort stuff.
I'm not sure I understand the voucher system.
Well, it's kind of a right-wing thing. I've been doing a little research on it.
Uh-huh.
In the United States, they're using it as a way to attack public education.
Can you expand on
Can I
the
say something
voucher
on that?
system?
Voucher. Basically, let's say it costs X dollars to keep a kid in public school for a year.
Right.
The parents would have the choice of taking their kid out of the public school, put them in a private school, and they would get a voucher for that X number of dollars. And so the school system would lose one student, and they would lose the proportional amount of money that comes with that student. It wouldn't actually hurt the public school system in any way.
Well, that's not true, because what they find is, in reality, the schools that the money's being taken out of are public, and they're totally accountable to the parents, and there's oversights on them, and they're controllable. But the money that is going into schools that aren't accountable and don't have any controls, and sometimes are worse, heck of a lot worse in the public schools, and teach hatred. And these things got to be looked at. There's tons wrong with public schools, but the solution isn't to create even worse learning. I guess there has to be standards, there has to be accountability, there has to be oversight, there has to be parental control and community control of these schools. Otherwise, we're out of the frying pan and into the fire thing. But I think that, vouchers could be done well if all these things are kept in mind, and they could not only be applied to education, but health as well. I think it could be a real attack on kind of a medicinal monopoly that the pill pushers have. So in a way, you could steal it from the right wing and apply it to the left wing.
I can make